תודה רבה לפרופסור בן ישראל על ניהול המושב. לחלקו השני של המושב אני שמח להזמין את עוזי רובין. עוזי רובין, מעבר לעובדה שהוא חבר וידיד גם אישי וגם של המכון, הרבה שנים עסק בהיבטים שונים של טילים. בין היתר היה ראש הראשון של מנהלת חומה במסגרת מפת, משרד הביטחון. היה מעורב עמוקות בנושא פיתוח משגר הלוויינים הישראלי. עוזי סיים לימודים בטכניון, את התואר השני הוא עושה ברנסלר פוליטקניק בארצות הברית, השתלם גם בסטנפורד ואז עבר גם לעסוק במסגרת המועצה לביטחון לאומי בנושאים של פרוליפרציה של נשק מסוגים שונים. אז אני מתכבד להזמין את עוזי רובין.
תודה. המושב הבא הוא הדרך לחלל, והדרך לחלל קשה ומייגעת, רבותיי. חלק מאיתנו יש להם עדיין חבורות לעסק הזה, וכל זה נובע מהצרה של השימוש ברקטות. כמו שאמר יוגי ברה, על השאלה, על הביטוי המפורסם שלו, מאוד קשה להתנבא בעיקר על העתיד. אני אומר שמאוד קשה להגיע לחלל בעיקר עם רקטות. ולכן במשך דורות ניסה האדם לקצר את הדרך ולהגיע לחלל בדרכים אחרות. עכשיו אני מחליף פה את אתם רואים למשל מצד שמאל, כבר במאה השנייה אחרי הספירה, הוגה דעות סופר בשם לוסיאן מסמוסטה, סמוסטה זה בסוריה, זה היה סורי של היום, היה לו רעיון פשוט, לוקחים אונייה, ספינה על הים, מגיעים למקום שיש כזה טורנדו, נד מים, ועולים עם זה, מגיעים לירח, ממש קל ונייד. עברו הרבה שנים, היו ימי ביניים, היה רנסנס, ואז מגיע יוהנס קפלר. יוהנס קפלר שאנחנו חייבים לו את חיינו, כי אלמלא המסלולים הקפלרים הפשוטים שלו, תאמינו שחיינו בדרך לחלל היו הרבה יותר קשים. והוא, אחרי שהוא המציא את שלושת החוקים שלו, גם כתב לא יאומן את ספר המדע הבדיוני הראשון, שבו הוא מגיע לירח, והוא רואה איך כדור הארץ נראה מהירח. אבל איך הוא מגיע לשם? קל מאוד, יש שדים. השד לוקח אותו לשם, הוא מגיע לשם, אחר כך השד לוקח אותו חזרה, הלוואי עלינו. הדמיון נמשיך לעבוד, הדרך לחלל גירתה את הדמיון של הרבה אנשים, וסופר אחר בשם דומינגו גונזלס ב-1638, היה לו רעיון עוד יותר פשוט. שדים זה קשה, אז לוקחים ציפורים, הרבה ציפורים ביחד, עפות, 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 עד שמגיעות לירח. לעומת זו, סירנו דה ברג'רק, חוץ מהאף הארוך שלו, הוא גם כתב ספרים, לא יאומן, היה לו רעיון עוד יותר טוב, הוא רצה להגיע לירח. עכשיו אתם יודעים, יש טיפות טל בבוקר, יש טל על הצמחים, על הצמחייה, וכמו שאומרים באירופה, השמש יונק את הטל הזה, הוא נעלם, כשהשמש עולה הוא יונק את הטל. מה עשה סירנו? אסף הרבה טל במכלים, שם אותם, אתם יכולים לראות פה על המותניים שלו, ואז כשהשמש עלתה, היא משכה אותו למעלה. זה דרך אגב לא הצליח, כי הכוח לא היה מספיק, הוא נפל בסוף, אז הוא ניסה גם רקטות, אבל הסוף היה שהוא לא הגיע לירח, אבל הניסיון היה מעניין. כמה שנים אחרי כן, מישהו אחר המציא ברכבה חשמלית, עוד לא ידעו מה זה חשמל. חשמל עוד בתקופת פרנקלין בערך, לפני הממציאים הגדולים של המאה ה-19, אז חשמל זה היה טוב. איך בדיוק זה עבד? הוא לא השאיר את הנוסחה, אבל הוא נסע לירח עם חשמל, ולעומתו אחד בשם ונזל, ב-86 היה לו רעיון עוד יותר טוב. מבקשים מתושבי הירח, יודעים כולם שעל הירח יש תושבים. אז מבקשים מהם שיורידו כזה וינץ', מורידים הווינץ', שאתם יכולים לראות בסל, מעולים למעלה, מגיעים לירח. הכל קל ופשוט. טוב, בינתיים המציאו את המדע, והתברר שהחיים יותר קשים, למשל שאין אוויר בין כדור הארץ לירח, וחוץ מזה יודעים שרקטות לא יודעות לטוס בחלל. כי רקטות בחלל אין אוויר שהרקטה יכולה לדחוף כנגדו. לכן צריך להגיע לשם אחרת, וג'ול ורד כתב את הספר המפורסם מהארץ לירח, והוא הגיע לירח בעזרת תותח, תותח גדול מאוד, שחפרו אותו, ושימו לב, המקום הגיאוגרפי היה יוצא מהכלל, על יד נהר קקאו בפלורידה, קוקו ריבר פלורידה, שזה בערך איפה שקייפ קנברל נמצא היום, מקום מצוין. כל החישובים שלו היו בסדר, היו כמה אותיות קלות, למשל 3 אנשים יושבים בפגז ויוצאים ב100,000 G, אז מה שנשאר מהם זה משחה דקה בתחתית של הפגז, בעיה קלה. אחרי כמה זמן התברר שזה לא עובד, ואז הענק השני של המדע הבדיוני המודרני, A.G. וולס, גם הוא מצא דרך להגיע לירח עוד יותר פשוטה. הגיבור שלו, פרופסור קאבור, המציא חומר שממסך גרביטציה. ואז אתה לוקח קפסולה, דרך אגב, עם Life Support System, יש בפנים מצברים, יש כבר חשמל, אנחנו מדברים על 1901, ושני אסטרונאוטים, לא שלושה, לא היה מספיק מקום, ומה שאתה מצפה אותה בחוץ עם קאבורית, ואז בעצם היא צפה, היא לא מושפעת ממשיכת כדור הארץ. אתה אבל עושה תריסונים שם, כשאתה פותח תריסונים לכיוון הירח, הירח מושך ואתה נוסע אליו. פשוט וקל, יש בעיה, כי קשה לשלוט על זה, אז לכן אתם רואים את הבליטות האלה מסביב לחללית, וכל בליטה כזאת זה בולם זעזועים, כדי שתעשה נחיתה רכה. טוב, גם זה לא הלך כל כך, ובסוף נשארנו תקועים עם רקטות, אבל הדמיון לא מפסיק לעבוד, ואנחנו מקווים שבעתיד אנחנו נגיע לחלל עם מעליות. הרעיון פה זה למתוח כבל בין כדור הארץ לגובה של 36,000 קילומטר ומעלה, מרכז הכובד צריך ב-36,000 קילומטר גיאוסטציונרי, ואז הכבל מסתובב סביב לכדור הארץ באותה מהירות של סיבוב כדור הארץ, ואז אפשר פשוט לעלות עם מעלית, לשים שם מטען ולרדת קל ונייד. בינתיים אבל רבותיי, כל התוכניות האלה לא כל כך עובדות. התוכניות עם ציפורים, כמו שאמרנו, האוויר נגמר שם בדרך, והתוכניות עם המעלית עדיין חושבים על זה. ולכן אנחנו נמצאים בדרך לחלל עם רקטות, עם כלי משגרי לוויינים גדולים. הדובר השני שלנו הוא מיסטר פרנק דיבלו. פרנק דיבלו הוא הנשיא והמנכ"ל של חברת ספייס פלורידה, שזה זרוע של הממשל, של ממשלת פלורידה, של ממשלת המדינה, לפיתוח עסקי של עסקי החלל בפלורידה. פלורידה לא חסר לה, כן, כמו שאמרנו, כבר ז'ול ורן שם הגיע עם התותח שלו לשם. לא חסר, אבל תמיד טוב לטפח. הוא בוגר אוניברסיטה של וילנובה במתמטיקה, וסיים לימודי מוסמכים באוניברסיטה האמריקאית ובאוניברסיטת ג'ורג' וושינגטון בוושינגטון. יש לו יותר מ-40 שנה ניסיון בתעשיית החלל ובתעשייה הביטחונית, וגם עסק בהשקעות בתחום האוויר חלל ובתקשורת. ב-1958 פרנק קיבל את הפרס הגבוה ביותר שניתן לאזרחים על ידי משרד ההגנה בארצות הברית, עבור חלקו בביטחון של ארצות הברית ובטיפול בכוחות המזוידים. מיסטר דיבלו, בבקשה.
First of all, let me express a thank you to the Ministry of Science, Technology and Space, the Israeli Space Agency, and to the Fisher Institute for having me back. I certainly enjoy the opportunity to tell you a bit about Space Florida, but also to describe to you an innovative collaboration instrument that we put in place between the government of Israel and the state of Florida to promote space-related research. And if I have this correctly, that should do it. I'm going to talk to you quickly about Space Florida to give you a sense for what we are, because we are an unusual organization, describe the aerospace industry in Florida, which we're focused on developing, talk about some of the major initiatives that we have as we position Florida for the future, and describe the partnership that we have with the government of Israel. First of all, we are a very unusual construct of the legislature in Florida. We're a space authority for the state, and that gives us broad spaceport authority functions just like an airport or a seaport authority, responsible for making sure that the state has the infrastructure that it needs to succeed in the space marketplace. But we're also a public corporation and an independent special district, which gives us some municipal capabilities, and we're charged with helping to develop the aerospace industry in the state. And with those special capabilities that we have, we can finance, build, own, and operate infrastructure to support both government and commercial customers. The backdrop of all of this is that in the United States, we've been dealing with 20 years or more of war, and federal budgets all over the world are stressed. We know that. And the federal role is changing, especially in space. It's becoming increasingly and inevitably more commercial. Today, there are $314 billion of revenue from space markets, over 75% of those are from commercial sources. So as federal budgets get tight, companies are consolidating their operations from many, many locations and planning for next generation programs and trying to consolidate and eliminate the number of manufacturing touches that they have on their next generation products. And we're there to help them see the benefits of doing some of that in Florida by financing infrastructure. But we're also seeing technology leveling all over the world. So we're inviting other countries to look at the benefits of operating in Florida and looking to participate in collaboration with those international companies. What is clear overall, though, is that the role of the private sector is increasing. Government will be buying more and more with commercial reliance on the vehicles that they choose, as well as buying from the marketplace. In Florida, we have some 20,000 companies that are related to various sectors of aerospace, employing some 140,000 employees, and that's a very rich talent pool to choose from, and it contributes about $20 million to the state. And I'm showing a slide right now of where the clusters of aerospace companies are generally located in the 4 or 5 regions of the state of Florida. The strategy that we're employing for growth is to first think about space in terms way beyond just the launch vehicle, which is Florida is known for, and the satellite industry, the stuff that goes on the pointy end of the rocket. Florida also has a large capability in developing and managing the ground systems that make all of that work. But we're focused on diversification of the industry to all the users of space assets that make money in the commercial marketplace. And we're looking to vertically integrate and grow our supply chain in the state, as well as by carefully investing in key pieces of infrastructure, set in place the enabling hardware that makes growth possible. This is just a quick pictorial of those 3 areas that I mentioned: the launch vehicle, the satellite at the top of the marketplace, if this works. Well, I will simply point the marketplace up at the top is the satellite and the ground systems, but we're looking at all of the applications which we've seen for time and time again mentioned in this conference of agriculture, weather monitoring, applications to energy, food production, communications, weather monitoring, all of these, and also in preparation for next generation businesses in taking passengers to the edge of space, or activities in low Earth orbit that may be satellite maintenance and satellite replacement related. So we're looking at positioning Florida for all of these markets. What this tells us is that the future of space in Florida is going to be different than it's been in the past. Less government-oriented and more commercial, and we're looking to position Florida for all of the systems that are next-generation systems, including use of the International Space Station and other on-orbit platforms. So how are we doing this? Well, first of all, we're expanding our network of spaceport assets throughout the state. We're well known for what exists at the Cape, but we're also developing capabilities at Cecil Field and in other areas of the state that make sense. And our assets will be owned by, as in traditional past, for national security by the Air Force, for civil programs by NASA, and for a lot of the commercial-focused activities by Space Florida. Today, there are 2 active Air Force pads remaining out of some 20-some that were active a few years ago. And they support United Launch Alliance and SpaceX. There are 2 inactive NASA pads, one of which was just given to SpaceX and the other of which is being used to prepare for NASA's next generation SLS and Orion program. Space Florida has 2 active pads at Launch Complex 36 and 46. We're building a purely commercial site at a place called Shiloh, and we're preparing for a next generation of launch vehicles. One of the other things that we're doing, which I believe will certainly be historic, we're a few weeks away from the completion of a negotiation with NASA to take the historied shuttle landing facility, which is a unique asset, and turn it over to Space Florida to commercialize it as a commercial horizontal spaceport capability. And we're already signing up customers for operations on this facility. In using the financing powers that we have, we've contributed to the building or financed a number of unusual assets at the Cape, including the horizontal integration facility that ULA uses for its vehicles, payload processing facilities, and in the lower right-hand corner, there is a facility that Space Florida financed and built to help Boeing manufacture its next generation CST-100, which is its commercial crew program. We've also contributed and are planning the evolution of Cecil Field as a spaceport. I mentioned that, and that will also play a role in support of both unmanned vehicles as well as horizontal takeoff spacecraft. So we're positioning the state for almost all of the next generation systems that will be flying to space, regardless of how they take off, land, and operate in low Earth orbit. Another area that we're involved in is positioning Florida as a ground node for support of the microgravity research that could be conducted in low Earth orbit and on the International Space Station. Florida built a Space Life Sciences Laboratory, which is a 100,000 square foot facility which has a live animal care capability, and we process payloads that can support your microgravity work in low Earth orbit or at the International Space Station. And we invite companies from all over the world to work with us and to make available to them the assets that we have that can support their microgravity research experiments. We also are working in the small satellite industry with both our universities as well as a number of companies to develop capabilities that I know are being developed all over the world, but we're working to put in place unique applications development capabilities as well as launch capabilities to make launch services available for both universities doing research as well as small companies developing next generation capabilities. It's to get them into orbit in the least expensive way possible. The unmanned systems area is becoming increasingly integrated with aviation and with space, and certainly Florida's positioning to support the evolution of unmanned systems, and that's an area that I know is well known. We will see an increasing number of unmanned systems both performing missions that benefit mankind here on Earth, as well as working in coordination with satellite assets to do the same. And you've heard a number of presentations this morning which talk about some of those capabilities. We have the ability to operate those systems in Florida. We're working with our universities in collaboration with universities in other parts of the world, and we're actively forming partnerships to do this in agriculture research and space-related microgravity research and propulsion, and in all of the areas of interest to the space industry. These are just a few of the tools that we use to promote entrepreneurship and collaboration. They have the usual list of suspects from, while we can't do a lot to fund direct research, and I'll come back to that in a moment, except through this collaboration that we have with Israel, we do fund technology demonstrations. So we invite companies to use some of the infrastructure that we have to display their technology for the marketplace. We engage in a number of entrepreneurship and venture capital showcases where small companies, by putting up prize money for companies to present their business plans to the market. There are a network of incubators throughout the state, and we are looking at ways to develop and make available to small companies the advanced manufacturing capabilities of a large advanced manufacturing center. And we do this in partnerships with various government and research organizations in collaborative forms, all different kinds of contract opportunities. So I'll summarize the Florida portion of this by saying that clearly Florida is open for business. We have a very abundant skilled labor force, a very favorable tax structure if it becomes important to set up operations in Florida, and all of the other things that can help a space or aerospace industry company succeed in the marketplace that we're creating. With that, I'm going to close on describing Florida and concentrate on what we are very proud of as a innovation partnership that really makes some sense. the state of Florida and the government of Israel signed a memorandum of agreement a few years ago to collaborate on space-related research and key areas of aerospace research. This parallels ventures that I know the government of Israel has with other states in the United States. It's aimed at joint research in areas of targeted areas of interest to the space industry. It is being implemented in Florida by Space Florida and by Israel with the Office of the Chief Scientist, Matimop, as well as the Israeli Space Agency. It is something we're very proud of. It's open to for-profit R&D companies, and essentially what we're trying to do is marriage Israeli companies with Florida-based companies to put in proposals that we evaluate jointly, and we invite universities and research centers to participate, but not as primes. We want them as support organizations because the focus of this is on R&D performing industry. This joint application that is filed supports a proposal evaluation process that we've laid in place. Independent evaluations will be conducted both in Florida and in Israel. And we look for teams of companies, and we are involved, as I mentioned, in causing marriages to occur between interested Israeli companies as well as interested Florida companies who submit proposals. Both Florida and the government of Israel have committed a minimum of $1 million for each of the next 5 years, and we have a single-phase review and approval process that is in place this year to streamline. We were putting out multiple research calls. We're involved in our second research call now. These are some of the areas that are eligible for proposed projects, and they include everything from satellite communications to the use of small satellites, the sensor area and the applications of those space-related sensors, bioagriculture, biolife sciences, use of nanomaterials and coatings, almost any area of space-related research that advances the capabilities of the products that serve this industry. We have a call, an RFP that is out right now, a call for proposals. The application deadline is March 16th. We also operate with a database of Florida aerospace companies that is available to any company in Israel that is interested in pursuing this. While we are here, we are engaged in a number of marriages that we're trying to create. That's not a source of revenue for us, but it's something that's helpful to the project. And I will close with that. We really do, we're very proud of this collaboration initiative, and I cannot thank the team that is in Matimop for their great team to work with and really doing a great job in helping us along. So with that, I'll close and thank you very much. I do want to show you one picture though, and this just highlights the laboratory that I mentioned that the state of Florida built to support life sciences. This is a picture of a team, the Columbia crew, preparing a payload, and I think you can see Ilan Ramon actually working in the laboratory to prepare payloads for that flight. We're very proud of that. Thank you very, very much.
תודה לפרנק, והדובר השלישי והאחרון שלנו זה גנרל, בעברית היינו אומרים גנרל מילואים, רב אלוף מילואים, קרייג קמפל, באנגלית זה לפטננט ג'נרל ריטיירד, אצלם זה לא מילואים, זה בפרישה. הוא הנשיא והמנכ"ל של חברת אלסקה איירספייס קורפוריישן, שיטה אמריקאית לעשות דברים, ממשלת מדינה שמקימה גוף מסחרי שעוסק בקידום נושא החלל אצלה. הוא סיים את לימודיו בתואר ראשון באוניברסיטת טולזה, ועשה את התואר השני שלו במנהל ציבורי בגולדן גייט יוניברסיטי. שנים ארוכות של קריירה בחיל האוויר ובמשמר הלאומי של אלסקה, וכן בסקטור הציבורי. הוא היה נבחר לחבר במועצה של אנקורג' וקיבל מינוי של סגן מושל המדינה, מדינת אלסקה, מיולי 2009 עד דצמבר 2010, ובין השאר הוא, אני מניח שהארגון שלו נמצא, מנהל את מתקן השיגור, את שדה החלל בקודיאק, מעניין מאוד לעקוב אחריו, שדה השיגור הצפוני ביותר של ארצות הברית, קצת מתקשר בסרטים שראינו על אלסקה, הארץ שבה השמש לא שוקעת בקיץ ולא עולה בחורף, מעניין מאוד. גנרל, בבקשה.
Thank you. Let me move this up. Thank you, Mr. Rubin. I like Frank. I would very much like to extend my appreciation to the Fisher Institute, to the Israel Space Agency, and especially to the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Space for the opportunity to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I watched my watch just before I came up, and I noticed lunch is waiting. So I know you don't want to sit here for a long presentation. But I would like to talk a little bit about commercial space in the United States and Alaska. Every time somebody comes to a presentation, they try to think about what's the theme that we're going to talk about? What is the message that we want to convey? And as I was watching just the last hour, the message came to me that what we want to convey from the United States is you had 3 presenters that have come here to talk about commercial abilities to provide access to space and service in space. Traditionally, like all countries, in the United States, we were dominated by the federal government controlling space. They did the satellites, they did the rockets, they did the launches, they did the control. What you're seeing transitioning in the United States is much more shifting towards the commercial market. Stella did a fantastic job of explaining to you about SpaceX and their aggressive actions to make a commercial operation go in the United States that will access government and commercial services for our country and the world. Frank has been working very hard in Florida to develop a statewide initiative that provides and secures the aerospace industry in that state at a time of transition. And then way up in Alaska, we too have been going into the commercial space market. Alaska Aerospace is a state corporation, slightly like Space Florida, but a little bit different. We are chartered by the state of Alaska to provide aerospace development in the state, but we focused on providing launch capabilities our first mission. So we have a launch facility, a commercial, non-government, licensed by the Federal Aviation Administration, not the Department of Defense, launch complex at Kodiak. So you're seeing Alaska up there in the left-hand side, and the star where Kodiak is. And then to the right, you're seeing the red line is the road from Kodiak down to our launch site, and to the bottom left is our launch site. The Kodiak Launch Complex, located at Narrow Cape. The Kodiak Launch Complex, you can look right here. The Kodiak Launch Complex provides orbital services. While there are a number of facilities in the United States that do sounding rockets and lower launches for facilities and vehicles, there are only a few that actually put satellites into orbit. Vandenberg for the Air Force does Polar on the West Coast, of course. Kodiak is the other one on the West Coast that launches rockets and puts satellites into polar orbit. And we have produced a number of facilities at that site, and I'm going to actually introduce my business development Vice President Matt Steele in a second to show you our facilities. I want you to see Matt because he's in business development, and he'll be the guy you want to talk to about the sales at Kodiak if you're interested in operating there. But we have a lot of capability there. We provide the services to the customers from the time they arrive on the island to the time they launch. Very small workforce. We only have about 40 people on our workforce. And we provide all the services for the launch services team as well as launch operations. We are a state corporation, and I think the next slide will tell a little more about us. We were chartered by the state about 16, 18 years ago. We built the launch complex. We've had 17 launches. We are governed by a board of directors. So the unique part of it is, as a state corporation, I have the opportunity to use the state insurance plan. I can use the state procurement system. I can do a lot of the activities that government would expect of me if I'm doing a government launch. But at the same time, I can operate outside of the government and do contracts with private sector companies and not have to go through the government process and use the FAA rules for launch and for range. And that's another aspect that's very unique about Kodiak Launch Complex. On the right-hand side, you see a picture of the globe, and you see Kodiak at the center, and the green trapezoid that goes down towards the bottom is our launch azimuth, one of the largest in the world. We go from the west coast of California out past Hawaii and all the way south without having any interference of land or any overflight issues. So we can provide an optimum trajectory if you're trying to get into the LEO orbit from a polar perspective from Kodiak. We are a small lift facility, but we are expanding into medium lift. We've got a number of projects going on right now, including an environmental assessment that would allow us to build a medium lift facility up there. And we provide the services on an as-needed basis. So when a customer comes to Kodiak and to Alaska Aerospace and says, we would like to launch on August 26th of 2016, you will be guaranteed that you launch on that date. We have no competing customers, unlike some of the other federal ranges where a private commercial company may be deciding to launch and have a contract for a date. If there's a national security mission or some other federal mission that supersedes it, you'll be bumped. At Kodiak, you will not be bumped. You are guaranteed your launch time at the launch date and from the location with no interruptions because we are a state-owned corporation operating commercially. As I mentioned, we have just a few employees, very small operation. I think you'll enjoy it. And so I'm going to bring Matt up here to talk about the facilities themselves. State of the art. When you go to Kodiak and go inside our facilities, you know you're in Alaska, you could be in Florida, you could be in Texas, you could be in California. You could be anywhere in the world that has the state-of-the-art facilities, all enclosed, all-weather operations. So Matt Steele is our Vice President of Business Development. He'll walk you through the facilities.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a tour of what we have at Kodiak Launch Complex. And I'd like to start by also saying that you all have an open invitation to come up and see us. We find that the customers that come up and experience Alaska and experience the space port that we have there come away very, very satisfied. In addition, you saw the map and you saw that the opening slides talked about the road to space. Well, we're at the very end of the road. The only place you can go from our facility is to space. And we have a state-of-the-art launch facility. We're roughly about 70 kilometers south of the city of Kodiak, Alaska, on Kodiak Island. And we have a large area of state land that we have the ability to operate the launches from. And so we have a compact, relatively small, very efficient set of facilities in order to use for launch campaigns and like that. We have a range control center, maintenance facility, complete range safety and telemetry equipment, payload processing facility that handles up to 3 or 4 payloads at a time depending on your needs. For solid rocket motors, we have solid rocket motor storage areas so that you can bring more than one vehicle if necessary. We have a launch service structure over what we call Launch Pad 1 that provides our orbital launches. We also have a Launch Pad 2 for suborbital launches. It also can be configured for horizontal integration and launch like that, and a complete integration and processing facility. This is just kind of an overview shot of the area that we have in Kodiak, and I'll concede this shot was not taken in the middle of the winter, but when you think of Alaska, you usually think of glaciers and ice and snow and everything like that. And Kodiak, actually being on an island, has a relatively moderate climate. It's really probably closer in description to the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and is not nearly the snowbound area that you think of Alaska. But the shot also indicates that we have plenty of room. We have growth plans that Craig will talk about in a bit, and lots of area available. We have a state-of-the-art payload processing facility. This just shows an Athena payload that we flew for the Kodiak Star mission, with the payload getting ready to be processed. We have a separate payload processing facility, an airlock and like that. So as the rise in small sats and everything come in, we have the capability to manage multiple payloads and get them integrated in the payload processing facility. As a matter of fact, the Kodiak Star was one of the first multi-payload flights that was made, where we actually flew one satellite and dropped it off at a relatively high orbit, and then descended and dropped the other 3 satellites about 200 kilometers below. So the capability to take advantage of multiple commercial customers on a single flight we have that at Kodiak as well. We have a state-of-the-art range control center that includes all our technical controls. We have a complete weather office, all the safety, security. We have conference rooms. We have plenty of rooms for when you, the customer, want to come up there, or if it's your payloader like that, to come up and work. And then we have advanced communications. While we are remote, we have fiber optic, copper, and SATCOM communications available. So while you're launching at our particular place, a lot of your crew, whether they're either here in Israel, in the United States, or other locations, can be in direct communications with the Range Control Center and see everything in real-time telemetry. Inside the Range Control Center, we have a Launch Operations Control Center where the launch is actually run. And again, it's state-of-the-art with plenty of consoles for the launch vehicle and for the payloaders to follow through the launch. We have an integration and processing facility that allows for horizontal processing, and we have a number of customers that have come up and done that. It's about a 16-meter by 29-meter bay. On the right, you can see the spacecraft assemblies and transfer building, or what we call the SCAT, that actually can butt up against the integration and processing facility, and we can expand like that. The other thing the SCAT does is it's a movable building built on rails, and so it can go over either to LP2 or to LP1 with the vehicle underneath, and we basically have all-weather operations. So we have the ability to do all the processing indoors, and we only have to roll back the building, or on our launch service structure, open the building away right prior to launch. So we have basically 12-month year capability to process vehicles and get them ready for launch. We also have a rocket motor storage facility so that rocket motors can be shipped up early and stored if need be. And so one of the questions we get, of course, is, does the weather, bother you like that? This is a list of our missions and our manifest, and you can see about 40% of them have taken place in the winter and that. And so weather basically is not as big an issue as you might first think about when you talk about coming to Alaska in particular. The monthly temperatures are relatively mild. Obviously summer is nice, not hot, but winter is not oppressively cold either. Precipitation over the summer compares favorably with the Cape. It's about the same, but you can see that in the spring and in the fall, we generally have that more Pacific Northwest of America type climate. Interestingly enough, being close to the Arctic Circle, hours of daylight, if you come in the summer, some of the launch crews actually found out they got a tremendous amount of efficiency because the guys would work 12 hours and still have 3 or 4 hours to go out hiking or fishing or doing like that. And the biggest problem that they had is making sure everybody got enough sleep. So when they came to work the next day, they hadn't been up 20 hours and were ready and fresh to come back and go to work. And in terms of weather impact, actually the availability at Kodiak is better than either at the Cape or at Vandenberg. There's no lightning, so there's no issues similar to the Cape relative to delays due to lightning, and there's no fog, so there's no issues relative to Vandenberg as well. So weather we have a more benign climate than most people realize, and the fact that we have all indoor processing, we're pretty well set up to handle all that. So we have a complete range safety and telemetry system. We actually have 2 systems so that we can provide an off-axis capability if we need to. Complete instrumentation field and all the telemetry, and again we have all the ability to take the downlink data and then get it to your data centers. And then the other question is logistics. How do you get stuff to Alaska? Alaskans are used to the logistics challenge, so it's not a big issue to Alaskans. However, to outside customers, it can seem a bit foreboding. We basically have transportation into the island year-round. We can come in both by air, as you can see the STARS missile arriving up on the top, or we can bring it in by barge, by sea, and then we handle all the on-island logistics as well. One of the things that we're looking at a more commercial approach going forward is we're talking to partner with FedEx, where FedEx would actually handle all of the logistics for things coming up to the island. As it stands, FedEx's second biggest hub is in Anchorage. So FedEx knows how to get stuff to Anchorage. that link between Anchorage and Kodiak, they have a number of innovative commercial strategies that they're looking to make transport of all the items that would be required for a launch, from a very delicate satellite or CubeSats all the way up to the big rocket motors or launch vehicle and the ground support equipment. We're working with FedEx to have a turnkey solution where there's an 800 number that you call, and FedEx takes care of it from there. We're a completely FAA certified site. We're not associated with the U.S. Department of Defense, therefore we have a minimal number of restrictions. Basically, we can handle flights on about an 18-month window. This just identifies some of the paperwork that in the United States is still a problem. Obviously, we'd like to condense this, but there are certain flight safety things that we have to go through to do it. And unlike some of the other ranges that do fly in the world, we do fly with active onboard flight termination systems as part of our thing. So with that, let me turn it over to Craig and talk about some of the innovation and entrepreneurship we're doing in the future.
Thank you, Matt. Last slide, I promise, then we're going to go to lunch. But Alaska Aerospace is a company that's diversified in aerospace, and we're doing a number of things. And the first thing we're doing is taking our existing launch pad and expanding it and modernizing it. It's currently under construction for being modernized, and we're expanding it from medium lift to the small size. The picture you see on that slide is actually a Lockheed Martin Athena 2 F6. And that's a depiction of it, put in against the current gantry to make sure that you see that it works. And we actually have been in negotiations with Lockheed for the Athena program coming up to Anchorage and out to Kodiak. We also have finished, just about finished with the environmental assessment for a Launch Pad 3. That would be for a larger rocket, similar sized for the Antares, the Athena 3 of that category. And we're expanding into data downlinking. We have a contract right now for imaging data that you can get for Alaska. We have the distribution rights for that. And so if you're needing any high imaging data for Alaska, we'd be glad to provide that to you. And we're going to be doing the downlink services for these number of satellites that are going around Alaska, getting all that imaging for the world. We're going to be doing downlink services for that for a plethora of companies in the future. We're willing, as Matt said, to partner with people to help make things more efficiently, like getting with FedEx to get logistics costs down. We also want to make sure that we partner with anybody else that's looking for expansion of the aerospace industry in Alaska by ways of innovative financing. As a private corporation in Alaska, we have bonding authority, so I can actually use bonding authority to raise capital. And we also have a unique bank in Alaska, the Alaska Industrial Export Development Authority, that does very low-cost loans for infrastructure development in the state, and we're capable of doing that with them as well. So our goal is to become a full-fledged commercial operation for the state of Alaska, serving the United States and the world in commercial operations in space. We think we've got a great location. We've demonstrated it with our 17 launches year-round, as you've seen, all enclosed facilities, a great workforce, and we would look forward to talking to anybody here that's interested in commercial operations, going polar, going into data, imaging. We're there, we're open. Thank you very much for the time. We appreciate being here.
תודה לסטלה, לפרנק, לגנרל ולמט על ההרצאות המעניינות. אנחנו יוצאים כעת להפסקת צהריים של שעה. תודה רבה לכולם.